Good morning, it's another Creative Mornings Derby. Hello Instagram, it's lovely to see you. We have got a great speaker for you today in Duquay, and he's talking about our global theme of folklore. You'll see me giving our usual bit of intro, and we're going to be cracking on. We're just getting last coffees, getting ourselves settled, and we'll be cracking on in about a minute or so. So it's lovely to see you. Any questions, anything you'd like to say, do pop it in the chat and we will try and answer those questions for you as we go along. We'll be doing our usual 30-second lightning pitches at the end, so do stay for those and have a little hear of who else is in the room as well today. We'd love to see you at Quad. If you get a chance to come to Quad, we'll be next month. It's an early month, so we'll be kicking off. Doors will be opening at 8 a.m. and we'll be kicking off here online about 8:30. So lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us. Hello to everybody who's there, and welcome to Creative Mornings. I think we're good, gang. I think that's it. I think we can start. I've had to print my notes in green today because I realised I printed run out of black ink, so I had an inspired moment to change all the text to green. But I've realised it's actually quite difficult to read, and I should have brought my glasses. So forgive the slightly old lady, you know. I'm all right. I'm gonna roll with it. So, partner MailChimp. So any of you who are signed up to the newsletter, if you're not, please do. You will receive, as I say each time, lots of gifts from me and dancing little animations just to make you smile in your inbox. But it's a great way to find out who's coming up and what time we're on. A reminder, because we are mixing the times up at the moment to try and make it a bit easier for school runners, etc., to come to our slightly later sessions. So this month we'll open at 8 and on like that. So thank you, MailChimp. We greatly value you. We have had, obviously, strange times going on at the moment. And this is a little message that I'll read that Creative Mornings HQ have sent through, because obviously we have chapters in Ukraine. Our hearts are really hurting for what's happening in Ukraine right now. We have 3 chapters in Ukraine, and Creative Mornings HQ team have been in touch with them. They're currently doing okay. And when they asked them what they needed, they sent us some organisations we can work through to help out. And you can find those on a blog on the Creative Mornings page. So if you fancy helping to support your fellow Creative Morningers around the world, you can find out how to help those Ukrainian chapters there if you're looking to send some support. I think I've skipped a slide. I'm going to just not slip it. I've just not put it in. I think it's probably the truth. I am. I'm going to do it. It's a small mime. There's supposed to be a slide on there that has a big number 25 on it, and it's from MailChimp, and I'm going to read it out to you. 25 big lessons from small businesses. So this actually might be useful. Life has thrown some pretty curveballs recently. MailChimp spoke to inspiring small business owners from unusual names. I'm making myself laugh with my mispronunciations. Araka, Colombo, I can manage that one. Copenhagen and Bangalore. Well, not too bad. I'm really sorry that I have ruined. It's spelled A-C-C-R-A. Accra. Accra, thank you. Honestly, I see a dodgy spelling and I'm like, no, I'm going to pronounce it wrong and butcher someone's country. About important business decisions they've made during these turbulent times. Discover what they've learned along the way, including how to build a founding team, deal with competitors, and create an inclusive company. Basically, MailChimp is way more than just somewhere to send your emails from. They really do have a massive amount of information out there for supporting small businesses. Obviously, they then want you to send emails through their lovely system, but the information they have there is really useful. Lots of great stuff from countries all over the world and their small business experience. So quite focused on the small business community. It's nice. So do go and have a look. On the MailChimp website, you can find all of this extra information from them there. There's tons. So that's that. And today we're talking about folklore. It's a really interesting topic because I was kind of got to thinking about folklore and stories and what it meant, and actually how all stories are kind of folklore, aren't they? You know, as we move into that. And Duke is going to say something much more eloquent about folklore. But it was a song about the origin of the world a pot of simmering stew that draws the community to a table, a knot of ribbon in your hand. Folklore binds us to our ancestors and to our past, but also to our future. It was Guatemala City that chose this month's exploration, so they choose a theme. Every month a different chapter gets to choose what the theme is, and they choose somebody to do the amazing illustrations. This one was done by Sarah Ortega, so she's illustrated that, and you can find out more about her online, and it's there if you'd like to look her up and her work. But it's rather beautiful. That's me done. Hooray! Thankfully, we're on to the good stuff now, so I would like to introduce Ndukwe, who is going to talk on this month's theme of folklore. Look at that. Yay!
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Ndukwe Onoha. And I love that picture. That was taken by a creative in Derby named Daniel Dietrich. And ever since he took that picture, I've vowed to use the hell out of it. My name is Ndukwe Onoha. I'm a copywriter by day and a poet by design, but also a filmmaker, and we'll get into, or an aspiring filmmaker, we'll get into that. Pretty much all I've done from my professional experience to my hobbies have been to tell stories. And I think it's just quite fitting that when Hannah asked if I would like to speak on folklore, it just felt natural. And I'm waffling now, in case you've not noticed. But yeah, but that's me. I tell stories in different forms, professionally and personally. Now, folklore, Hannah said something when she was speaking. She said, all stories are folklore, in a way. Because when you think about it, all you need to do is situate the time, the place, whatever is going on around, and people's interpretation of that. And years later, we're going to go, these guys had an explanation of something. So all stories, really. And folklore, there are the traditions, beliefs, customs, and of a community passed through generations by, mostly by word of mouth. But again, they help people, at that time to understand, or to attempt at understanding their world that they lived in. So they give us a sense of the world, and they're like markers in time. Think of it as a signpost when you walk into a new area. It helps you know which way to go, where you are exactly. Think of it as Google Maps or whatever map software you use. But in the creative communities, apart from creative communities really, in our daily lives, these are guides, these are markers in time and space. And they help us understand how the world works. For instance, that guy over there, in Igbo, traditions we will call Amajoha. But you will know him as Thor. Again, it's people's understanding, no matter, depending on where they were, trying to understand how, the mysteries of thunder, lightning, and all that, and then, of course, build stories around, just try to say, okay, when this man gets angry, this happens. The lady, that's not Dracarys from Game of Thrones. No, not Dracarys, what's her name? The Targaryen lady, that's not her. That is a depiction of Annie. She's a goddess of the earth. She's a goddess of justice. Someone else, in that tradition you might call Gaia, right? So again, it goes to show how no matter where you are, we are all intertwined, in our stories. And if we're able to, lay down our walls, lay down our guards, and just listen to each other, we'll find that we're all looking for the same thing, and we're all trying to tell the same stories, through different means. And the last one, maybe I'll tell you one folklore to illustrate the last one. So way before humans walked the earth, animals roamed it. Animals lived as we do now. They interacted with each other, they built houses, they formed relationships, they went around the normal businesses. But as everything in life, there are ups and downs. There's a time of plenty and a time of want. And when our story starts is at the time of famine. There was hunger everywhere. But for some weird reason, it was just the earthbound animals that were, in the midst of this starvation. The birds were all well fed and plump, and looking good. And the tortoise, which in most Nigerian folklore is a very cunning animal, noticed this trend. So he went to his friend, the pigeon, and he asked, why? Why are you well fed? Why are you looking good and the rest of us are hungry? And then the pigeon said, well, what happens is that every so often, the king of the birds holds a feast for all of us. And we all go to his palace in the sky and we feast and eat till our bellies are full. And that keeps us for a long time until the next time we need to do this again. And the tortoise thought, this is a good idea. Perhaps I should go up as well. But there was one problem, you see, he has no feathers. Or he had no feathers. And being the cunning animal that he is, he knew that given his reputation, if he goes to ask for feathers, no one will lend him. So what he did was to go to each and every bird he saw and ask for just one feather. Told them a bogus story, I want to do something interesting, so I just need a feather. And he secretly collected all these feathers. And on the day of the feast, when all the birds were gathered to go to the castle of the king in the sky, this new, amazing, multicolored bird shows up. And everyone was amazed. Who on earth is this? And they asked him what's his name. He was like, oh, my name is Odofew. I'm like, that's an interesting name. So off they went to the sky. And when they got there, the drinks were brought out. Now, in the Igbo tradition, what we have, and not just in Igbo, but in Nigeria, there's this thing called palm wine. It's lovely. But anyway, I digress. So the palm wine was brought out, and the waiter says, man, this is for all of you. Now, the tortoise had thought about this beforehand. So he said, are you sure for me? Right. And this confused everyone. I'm like, oh no, don't worry. They said this is for all of you. They'll bring the rest for everyone. And foolishly they believed him. So he drank to his fill. Then they brought out the pounded yam and the food and the egusi soup and everything. I said, this is for all of you. At this time, the other birds were catching on to what was going on, but they had been played. And so it was that the tortoise ate the food and the drink for everyone. And this got them all upset. And as they started having an argument, someone realized, hang on, this bird does look familiar. And then took his feather and like, wait, hang on, this is the feather you got from me. And then everyone came around and took their feathers, and lo and behold, it was a tortoise. And I'm like, right, let's see how you get home from here. But the tortoise, also just being a master of manipulation, goes to the pigeon and tells the story, oh, my wife is pregnant, don't leave me here, just when you get back home, tell her to bring out all the soft things around, look for, the grass, pile them up so that I can jump from here and land perfectly. And the pigeon agreed. But on his way, his way down, he remembered all the ills that was done to him. So he goes to the wife and says, oh man, I don't know what your husband is doing, but he says to bring out all the hard things in the house. So she piles rocks and stones and wood, barks and all that, and piles them at a certain spot. And the tortoise, believing that his plan had worked yet again, jumps from the sky, lands on the rocks, and his shell breaks. In the midst of his agony, a snail was passing by, and he begged the snail to please help put his shell together. And the snail, compassionate animal that it is, helped the tortoise do that. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, the tortoise has a cracked shell. So, little things like that. Every aspect of our lives have those folk tales that are used to not just educate, but to form theories, but also to pass across moral lessons. Because what would happen at the end of each folk tale is whoever is telling it, mostly an elder, would say, the lesson thereof is do not deceive others. Do not take things by false pretense. Learn to share. Or else you will end up having a cracked shell like a tortoise. Johan have talked about, how folklore, and they're like an anchor, they keep us moored, in our identities, in our societies, in our communities, but also in the wider world. Because if you understand that Thor is Amajoha to me, then it means that at some point we all sought, answers to a common phenomenon, and we somehow worked out this amazing thing that, though we're in different locations, somehow have the same thoughts, running through. So perhaps if we get together now, we will still be able, just imagine the power of, of us getting together to formulate new stories, new mysteries, new identities for who we are in this modern time. And as a person, I tell my stories with poetry. Now, this is the part where I start talking about me, but like I said, storyteller, folklore, we still need to keep this alive, each and every one of us. I mean, Hannah put something out on social the other day and said everyone is creative, and we believe everyone is creative. So it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. If you're drawing, if you're painting, if you're writing, if you're speaking, we all need to keep our folklore, our stories alive, and through time. I just happen to do mine with poetry. I wonder what you do yours with. I've had 2 studio albums that again mirrored the times we're in, Revolutionary Verses and Wanchuku. Please check them out on your different platforms, and again, just try and see if you can point out what stories I'm telling at each one, or in each one and each track. I've been a cast in Nigeria's first spoken word theatre production toured Lagos and Berlin, Germany, courtesy of the Growth Institute. And someday we were on the train and we decided to just do an improv. Quite interesting. And I've produced a live performance of my spoken word album, and there with a group of amazing people. But again, all in a bid to make sure that our stories are kept alive. And now, formed a company called Griot. Now, Griots, if you don't know, they were sort of like historians, the keepers of the oral histories. Not oral histories, anyway, the keepers of the history through oral tradition in West Africa. So they would go from place to place. They were sort of like our living, walking libraries, but who also brought our history to life in colorful ways through music, through poetry, through entertainment, through dialogue. Just so that the fires of our identities were kept aflame. And I think it's important, to have this, going forward. So the Griot Company is formed to tell stories, especially of underrepresented people, and if when drilling down as well, to those of African heritage. And we're working on Adani, which is a short film, which will be our first major production in the UK. Adani tells the story of a young lady who, after an accident, develops aquaphobia, and she needs therapy to try and walk through this, to try and get herself out of this. But then, in the true tradition of African folklore and African mysteries, nothing really is as it is. So the person who she's going to meet, the therapist, is anything but a therapist. The accident was anything but an accident, but let me not say too much right now, and meet me later, we can talk about it. But really, it's how I'm looking at how we can bring back these stories to the modern time, because if you lose your stories, if you lose your histories, you lose yourself. and really no one should. No one should be made through, willful ignorance or, through re-education or whatever way to lose a sense of identity. And I believe, that this will help to bring that back. So I will be needing your support. What you can do is scan the QR code on the screen. It will take you to a form where I would ask, a few questions, of how you can, if you're willing to support the production of Adani and how we can make this happen. Just leave it there for a minute. And in keeping with tradition, what I'll do is end on a note with some poetry. Can I do that?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
All right. This is titled Home. It's off my second spoken word album, and it again just talks about people's experience. At the arrival lounge of a foreign airport, you'll recognize it. The Black Sea of migrants. Wave after wave, it pours into a wide shore of hope, a desperate attempt at cleansing itself from a history it would rather soon forget. But if you've ever been to the beach, you'll know that the sea always swallows its own. And on this occasion, the Black Sea recedes. Hands turn to the back of a returning tide, faces turned away for fear of recognizing a particular scent. Home is a stench that must be forgotten. But I will remind you. I will scar you with memories of home like deep-set travel marks. Peel away at those layers that have become you. Your clothes, your nice jewelry, your fake accents, your children who do not know the taste of fresh spun proverbs, your early morning run, your midnight snacks, the ever-present assurance that everything will be okay. They will not be okay. They will never be okay. For no matter how far you run, how many skins you wear, how many memories you bury in the quicksands of time, I will still be here reminding you of home. Of the white ram with lightning in its eyes and thunder in its teeth. Of the tortoise that rode the back of the elephant and dined in the skies. Do you remember who you are? Do you know why we sing, why we take her children back into the belly of Annie, or pour libation when we pray? Do you know why we mark our bodies with chalk or call our full names when we speak? Do you know who you are? Or did you fall out of the ocean? Cling with bleeding fingernails to the sand on the beach as you crawled your way to a foreign land? Did the trickster sell you a lie? Do you answer to a new name now? Speak with new tongues now. Speak on the mysteries of your home. Hack away at your family roots whose history do you embrace. Home is not a destination on a tour map. Home is in your heart. So wear it on your skin. And when they ask you what you will be called, look them in the face and say, Amadi, Mwachuku, Mwafo, or just tell them your name. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Any questions? Anything that's springing to mind? Go on, Tim.
Thanks for that. It was really good,
Thank
by
you.
the way. I wondered what you thought the role of folklore or its ingredients of ceremonies, symbols and stories had in change, bearing in mind like the world we live in just coming out I don't know, in a pandemic, but there was a lot of change then with living through climate change and a lot of societal and humanitarian changes that are needed. What's the role of folklore in that with change, do you think?
I think folklore, they act as markers in time and they help us remember. So it's and especially when you talk about climate change, or when you talk about just trying to live with the pandemic, as it were, folklores also just help us because they weren't just told as they were told with ceremonies. So there were ceremonies of gatherings, of being there for each other, of learning from one another, of imparting knowledge. But what, take the pandemic for instance, did was to sort of like isolate everyone. And even if you wanted to tell folklores, you almost couldn't tell it as powerfully. There was not that community or communal feeling anymore. But what folklore, what remembering this does, what trying to go back to this does, it helps to sort of like remind us gradually of why we are here, of why we do this, of why we need to take up certain courses, of certain actions. But you can instill values through folklore in them, so that when they're of age to remember or to understand certain sciences, it's easy for them to transition because they already have those values of respect for nature, of scientifically this is why, but then the decisions.
Storytelling in films, music, what all that. Do you see anything which is replicating some of the stories that come from? Is there anything out there you're seeing that which reminds you of those the traditional storytelling?
Oh yeah, they're everywhere. It's the Marvel universe. It's a universe of folklore. So the thing we need to do is, I believe, is to try and understand that while we want to tell folklore, we must also be amenable to change and adapting our styles with time. So I can tell you that because of Marvel Universe, for instance, because of Thor, because of Loki, I know that there are people now who know a lot more about those mythologies than, let's say, some of us growing up. So all around us, when you go to the theaters, when you look at Alice in Wonderland, when you look at the Lion King. The Lion King, I mean, basically, it's talking animals, isn't it? But they teach us the values of family, the values of doing the right thing, of the values of your community, of friendship, and of finding your own path. There's a lot of myth in here. So every story, it's just a question of form.
But if that was, if we're surrounded by those stories telling us these eternal truths, and why is the world in the state that it is?
That's a good question. I can't say I have the answers, and I can't say that folklore and all these stories are also like an elixir that will make everything perfect. But what I do know is that we need to put in a lot more effort to talk with each other, a lot more effort to understand each other, because
it's what's the highlight on, isn't it? And when big companies are, they're promoting an image for a reason, and usually, obviously, that's financial.
Yeah.
And whereas for us, like you're saying, we can take different things from that. It's in our faces.
Yeah.
But we can change the reason. We can look at the stories.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, where am I going to get folklore from? Disney. It's sort of, but then you said Lion King, and I thought, well, actually, there are things.
And I think,
that are deeper.
yeah, and I think if we tune off sometime, make it again, going back to an Amajoha and the Thor, depending on who would call him Amajoha, there's another part where he's called Shango. And then there are different iterations of this, but you find out that really there's a thread, there's a common thread. And if we, unless we go out, unless we make a conscious effort, to talk, and I know, yes, it's hard, it's difficult because of the pandemic and everything, but really, we really do need to do that a lot more, because then we will understand, we will go beyond the surface. Because and it's probably a different conversation, but when you think of countries and states and nations, those really are just lines in the sand. Because if you go back hundreds of years, ago, you'll find out that these were just addresses. I live here, I live there, but then people decided, we're going to just draw these lines, and then suddenly we're fighting for an idea, that someone decided was ideal. But again, that is a different conversation altogether. But unless we get out to try and talk to each other to understand, we won't know that, oh, you guys do this, we also do that. What do you call it? Oh, interesting, we call it this here. And then we find out that all stories are also intertwined. Yes. Oh, sorry.
It was just to follow on from that point, and then I'll shut up then. Sorry. But there was, you hit on a couple of interesting things on that, like the word understanding, right, is key to kind of what Keith brought up in the previous question, right? There's a lot of kind of knowledge and information about everything about them, but we know from studies in human behaviour and stuff that knowledge and information is knowledge and information, but the way you add meaning is through narrative ceremonies and symbols, right? That add that depth and help people understand. But our default communication as people is to dump it with people, but without remembering the story adds meaning to it. But that was it. That was just a thought.
Thank you, thanks. I really enjoyed, that was great, and the performance. I just wanted to ask about your process, about the way that you write, how you work. So do you have a sort of set way, so like on a daily basis, would you write every day? Because I've seen you writing down in the cafe and working down there. So, some people might not be able to do that. Do you work with music, or would we find you in the library surrounded by books? What's your process, and is it something that you do on a daily basis, or is it something that you visit a couple of times a week? I'm just interested in your your own way of working.
It depends on if I have a deadline. But if I don't have, so I carry around, there's always a pen in my pocket, and of course the trusty phone, so that if I see something that interests me, a line, then I just write it down. But I don't really able to just come out, because the more I go around, the more I'm opening my eyes and I'm just looking and I'm curious, and I think it's what we should do. Just look at the world around you, just keep looking, always be curious. Walk up to someone and strike a conversation, or I, like we're saying this morning, except you're in London, then you don't want to do that. But so yeah, the process again just depends. But always have something to record, because there are times that thoughts come to you, and if you don't have a way of recording it, you lose. Sometimes they're like spirits, aren't they? They just sort of like fly away in the mist. Yeah. So yeah. So not necessarily inspiring, I know, but.
Isn't it something come in your dreams? Do you dream things and then?
Oh yes, I've had. Yeah, I've had those experiences where you're in a dream and then you wake up, and then the mistakes I've made is like.
Where's the pen?
I'm like, you know what? Yes, I'll remember it in the morning, and then wake up the next day and you can't. For the life of you, you can't.
Oh, very good. I love that idea of the kind of golden thread that joins us all together and joins us. Creative Mornings, where we share that thread. That is our common thread from today. We're connected through Creative Mornings to well over 238 countries, I think, 238 chapters around the world. No, it's right, and we get to hear their stories and be part of it. I don't know if anyone's been on a field trip with Creative Mornings, so that's an opportunity to dip in and see what other chapters are doing. Has anyone dropped in, maybe more when we were online? Has anyone dropped in on a Creative Mornings elsewhere? And we've certainly had people drop in on us to hear our stories, which will be different to their stories. But I love the idea there's something shared in all of that. And if nothing else, we're all part of this shared community. And that is our style,
It
and that
is,
is
yeah.
our common thread. I love that. That was great. I think we should give Nduke the most massive round of applause for such a great job. That was absolutely incredible. Thank you very much.
Right.
I now get the opportunity to ask if anyone else would like to come up and be inspiring. If anyone would like to give us their 30-second lightning pitch, tell us about them. I know we've got at least one going here. Yeah, come up, perfect. Introduce yourself, give us your little 30 seconds, go for
30
it.
seconds, right quick. Hello, I'm Zoe Bateman, and I'm starting a company called Media Made Simple. Okay, and that's exactly what I want to do. I want to make media, in particular social media, simple, because I know it's something that everybody gets a little bit bogged down. Either time, interest, it's dull sometimes, I know. And that's what I want to do. I want to help you guys get it all out there. I'm not a salesperson, although I have got sales experience, but that isn't what I'll be doing it for. I want to help you succeed so I can succeed, and you need not to worry if you call me. So done correctly, social media is the cheapest, quickest, and the cheapest, quickest way of reaching the most people. And on top of that, on the flip side of that, is that it also offers the opportunity to really connect and engage with your audiences, your target audiences. So you can inspire them, answer their questions, so behind the scenes if you like, and the more people that you engage with in the right way, the more successful and visible you will be. I don't do contracts. You can have control of all the hows, whys and whats. All of it's just up to you. So if you want to give me a call, do. I've got some business cards, just give me a shout if you want one. Thank you.
Yay, no better way to tell your story than social media. Anybody else like to pop up? Please come up.
Live on Instagram, are we?
You are, yes. Come and stand here.
So I need to stand here to that?
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
They're all out there.
Yeah,
They'll
yeah.
probably give you a little few waves, few hearts if anyone's listening.
Yeah. Creative professionals, my job is to help you become better leaders and managers to create the impact that you desire, because you didn't train to be a boring leader or manager. You trained to be a creative, and the stuff that you need to know you probably haven't learned. It's easily learned, and I can help you with that. I have a plug for an event next Thursday. It's free if you are interested in setting up a social enterprise. I'm running an event to help you generate an idea to create a business with social impact. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I've got some business cards here, but get in touch and come along to the event, or if you just want to have a chat, just do so. Get in touch through LinkedIn. Cheers.
Very good.
All right.
Amazing. Ola, come up.
Fluffy rug.
Ah,
I'm going to have to
step
bring
forth
the
onto the
details.
shag pile. I mean,
Because I have a scoop.
go on.
And
go
I'm not
for
sure
it.
if I'm supposed to share it yet, but I'm going to do it.
Hey,
It's a bit of a rule
steps.
breaker.
Do one step this way, and then you're more sharing.
Oh, and I'm all about sharing. So, the scoop is there is going to be Derby's Ukraine fundraiser event. We've only just started planning it this week. It's very exciting. So the ladies that brought you the International Women's Day collab box with Nat from Collie Box.
Yes, yeah.
The lovely Rachel is part of the group. We've got some other people, some Derby marketing bondholders in the group, and we have decided to do an event to raise much needed funds, and it's going to be at the Chocolate Factory. We've got Liv from Bustler and Jerry.
Nice.
It's going to be massive. Shall I tell you some exciting details?
Go for it.
I'm most excited about the bouncy castle. I'll tell you, I know, that's just me.
I mean, you have me. Wow, that's it.
Oh, okay. So it's going to be on Monday the 11th of April. It's at 4:30 till 7, and it's going to be at Bustler. So it's bookable. There's going to be an Eventbrite link. We're going to ask everyone to pay a little bit to come in. All the funds are going to go to the charity. There's going to be live music. There's going to be networking, street food, bouncy castle.
stalls, there's going to be a raffle, and a donation station. It's going to be family friendly, it's going to be lots of fun. It's, I think, during the Easter holidays, so bring your kids along, just wait for me. But so I just wanted to share it because it's really soon, it's the 11th. We've only just planned it this week, it's all very exciting, isn't it? But yes, I'm not going to get a chance to say to the next event, so yeah, please come along. You can donate even if you don't come along. I think there's going to be an online donating button thing, so yes, it's just, we all felt helpless, like we all do. You just don't know what to do, and you know, it was just...
Sounds amazing, and a use of that amazing group's talents towards a good cause. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you.
I will, everyone who's stood up and given a little pitch, if you let me have your details, I will email those out to the community, so we'll get a little follow-up. I have been meaning to do that a bit more, so there's so much good stuff that comes out of these 30-second pitches and things like that, so I want to make sure that I keep sharing them with you. So if you're not signed up to the newsletter, then do. If you haven't persuaded someone else to sign up to the newsletter, then please do, because we have plenty of room for more Creative Mornings people to be part of it. So I would really like the community to grow and get more faces coming, more new people. So keep sharing, keep telling people about it. That would be amazing. I think that's us done. Have I missed anything? Have I missed anyone out? Anyone else who'd like to give us their 30 seconds? Tell us what they're up to.
I'll just quickly say
quite
away from the front. There's still tickets left available for the Mainframe Awards 2022, Wednesday 6th of April and 6:15 onwards. There's only a handful left, so do sign up ASAP, because I'll be taking the link down as soon as it's all allocated.
Oh, very good. Yes, Mainframe Awards highlight of the creative year in Derby. So if you haven't been, do. I think there are at least one or two nominees in the room. So do get your tickets if you haven't already. That would be amazing. Okay, Cam, I think we're good. I think that's it. We've done March. Thank you for coming. There's more coffee, so do fill your boots. Don't forget to get everybody's business cards that's talked and wanted to share cool things with you. And thank you for coming. Thanks ever so much for watching us, guys. I hope you found that as enjoyable as I did. What amazing speakers and what an amazing cool community. Do join us again. As I say, next month we will be kicking off at about 8:30 on Instagram. I say ish because we do get carried away networking here. So do join us again on Instagram. If you'd like to join us at Quad, again, we'd love to see you in person if you are local or feel that you can ready to get back into in-person gatherings. That would be so fantastic to see you. So do join us. As I say, if you get a chance to sign up to the newsletter, please do, because that's where I send loads of information out, all about the cool things that we talk about, and keeping you posted about what's coming up. So thanks ever so much, and I will see you next time.